So let's actually dive into this, right? Why this network of the next decade? Why this particular offering is so awesome for K-12? So when Mist got founded, we were going around, talking to people, asking the question, hey, if we sat in your NOC, if we sat in your help desk NOC right now, and we were listening to, hey, what are the top 10 questions? What are the top 10 concerns you have on Wi-Fi? What questions do you get from students, teachers, staff, and guests, right? So one particular engineer in South Africa, he said, Sudhir, we actually don't get 10 types of calls on Wi-Fi. We only get 2 calls on Wi-Fi. We get calls saying, hey, I'm not able to connect to the network. That's call number 1. And so we said, okay, we got to collect, collate, and curate every single connection to the network. Right? Because by design in K-12, in school districts, you are not at the school premise, right? You are in some centralized office. You need to have the data when you need the data to troubleshoot. So every connection experience we will collect, collate, and curate. So question number 1, why can't I connect? The only other question we were told that they get in this NOC was, hey, people call in and say, hey, the Wi-Fi sucks, right? And so that's it. They won't tell you what MAC address, where they are, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Why is this Wi-Fi so bad? Why is my experience not good? So we as a company focused on, can I collect, collate, and curate? Why is my connection experience not good, a pre-connection, and why is my post-connection, traffic experience not good, right? So every device, every minute, every device, every minute, every Chromebook, every minute, every laptop, every minute, every projector, every printer, every minute, we're collecting the experience of that device. Whether you care or not, or you want it or not, it's in the cloud. So we can answer the question, was that device in good coverage or bad coverage? Was that device getting good performance or bad performance? Was that device having, good good capacity or no, right? So once you have this kind of data saying, aha, 61% of the time devices are connecting happy and healthy. Sounds interesting. That's terrible. But what's that 39% of failures, right? Why isn't this thing 100%? And so obviously in a school district, every problem starts with the Wi-Fi sucks, right? And so we wanted to get the Wi-Fi engineers to mean time to innocence to be able to say, hey, that's not the Wi-Fi, right? And so here, 39% of failures, I take that and say, wow, 99% of that 39% of failures is radius or PSK. Only 1% is Wi-Fi. Some of it is maybe even DNS, right? So then you go in and say, okay, exactly when did problems start? Whom did problems impact? And tell me, if it's affecting a certain device OS, a device type, a certain wireless band, and then not only tell me the top 10 devices that are failing, but tell me the bottom 10%, meaning every student's experience matters. And if a student's experience in this particular case is only subpar for 2% of the time, 98% of the time, Kush's Galaxy device is doing fine, but still that 2% matters. And I want to know what caused that 2%. And aha, there's an authentication failure, and I have a dynamic packet capture waiting for me in the cloud. Imagine this, step back. If a principal, if your superintendent, if you're a head of instruction, or if a teacher calls you and say, why is my network bad? Why are my students not able to get on the network? Imagine having a dynamic packet capture waiting for you for every student at all times for no extra cost to you, right? It's just there. This is the beginning of an AI-driven, purpose-built network for K-12 because every problem is collected, collated, and curated for you like this. Then you can say, and by the way, this PCAP is not just, okay, this is what was happening on the air at that time. No, sir. This PCAP is specifically, hey, this was what was happening with that user right then at that very moment, right? This is how sort of an AI-driven system can actually get to the next level. Now, this is all just data. We collect tons and tons of data to collect, collate, and curate this. But then we said, wouldn't it be awesome if we could apply AI to this, right? Especially in a school district where you don't have time. And by definition, you are reacting. Could we turn you proactive? And that's where comes Marvis. Marvis is our AI engine, and Marvis is constantly watching the network, right? Marvis is constantly saying, is there anything systemic happening at the district that I could knock off right now so we could avoid a bunch of problems? And then I can go into, a few persistently failing individual users or whatever, right? And this is where Marvis is running anomaly detection. We don't even talk to the radius server. We don't speak to the DHCP server. We are completely unconnected to the ARP server, but we can tell you exactly when failures are happening, when they're happening, because we are in line to the system. And this is the power of measuring user experience, every user, every minute, right? So then you say, okay, I got it. Marvis is telling me all these systemic issues. I could be proactive to my network, and Marvis can actually, help me. Imagine today, if you're a Cisco controller in a Aruba network or Aruba controller, and your AP can't reach the controller. Walk through your own workflow there, right? What does that look like? You have to now go into find the switch. First, you have to detect that AP is not connected. Go to the switch port, figure out what's going on, bounce the port, blah, blah, blah. No, not in the Mist Juniper case. An AP that is not connected to the cloud can speak to its neighbor and say, hey, could you please tell the cloud that I'm not getting an IP address and I'm connected on that switch, on that port, and this is my MAC. I need an IP address. An AP with no IP address is able to speak to the cloud. This is the power of an AI-driven network where we've intensely focused on simplified operations, right? And so never ever you're hunting and pecking for APs across the district all over the place. This is there, right? And if you have, K-12 is a very intensely capacity hungry network, right? It's a high density, high capacity network. Imagine we could say, hey, in this school district, Bethany Elementary, in the second wing, you have a coverage hole or a capacity hole. We are doing a real-time assessment of the RF at all times, 24/7 site survey, live with live user networks with no sensors, always available. Wouldn't that be awesome, where we're determining where you have RF gaps and coverage holes, right? This is what we do. And then now let me quickly switch to, so far everything I spoke to you about is Wi-Fi. Of course, we do guest access and everything else that you would expect from a standard Wi-Fi network. I'm not going to do all of this. Then we actually go in and say, hey, where are my devices? Can I see my devices, right? Can I actually know where students are occupying, classrooms, right? Can I see what the occupancy analytics based on every zone is? When there is you're going to hear from Mike Newcomb about the safety security applications. Imagine if you needed to know if there is a device on campus that is moving when the school is in lockdown, right? You needed to know, where are those users moving? Who are those users? Where are devices moving? Real-time Wi-Fi and Bluetooth low energy asset tracking live in the same dashboard, built into the product and the platform, right? This is powerful from a K-12 perspective. Then you go into, okay, so far everything you've talked about is Wi-Fi and location. What about switching? We've dramatically simplified switching. In fact, you're going to hear from Shahid on just how amazingly they've deployed their school district network from a switching perspective, going into completely automated profiles for ports. Plug anything into any port, detect the port, detect the device, and apply the right policy to the port, unplug that thing, reset the port back to its default persona, right? So we have complete native configuration built into from a zero-touch provisioning of all switches on your school district network to complete configuration. But we go one step further. This is our forte. This is our strength. Our strength is not that we can configure your switching better than a Cisco, Aruba, or in any other wired network. Our forte is the same user experience construct. What are the two questions we asked on the wireless? We got asked on the wireless team. Can I connect? And is my experience good? The same two questions we brought to the switching environment. Are your wired devices able to connect? And do they have a good experience? And what are your wired devices? Your wired devices are projectors, your printers, your video cameras, your sensors. They matter. And if a port is obviously, some of you may leave open ports. Many of you may not leave open ports. If every port has to go through either wired authentication, MAC auth, or dynamic port profiling, or radius-based authentication, wouldn't it be nice to know exactly which ports are not connected and why, right? Which devices are not authenticated fully or not getting DHCP and why, system-wide, every school district, every school in the district, right? That's possible. That's what successful connects is. Now, the next example, I'm connected and I should be passing traffic, life should be good, but what if there was congestion east-west? There's congestion north-south. What if there was a loop on your network? What if there was a storm going on in your network? We evaluate this experience on the wired side, every user, every 5 minutes, every port, every 5 minutes. We are able to qualitatively assert they are able to connect and their experience is good. And then take this to Marvis again. Now we can tell you if there's a bad cable. Imagine you're a school district with 5,000 students, right? So maybe 50,000 ports, maybe 10,000 ports, maybe 100,000 Ethernet ports. Across 100,000 Ethernet ports, wouldn't it be awesome if we could tell you, where there was a bad cable or a missing VLAN or a port flapping? Here's an example of Juniper's corporate total global wired network, right? And so I can see at a wired network full scale, I can see we have about 50,000 ports worldwide, and I can tell you exactly where a few devices are not getting DHCP. This is around the world wired network, and we have visibility like we've never had. Then I could say, but then that's connectivity. What about the experience? Is there any storm control happening anywhere? Is there any latency on the network? Are there interface anomalies? And then you take it to Marvis and say, hey, across my district, I want to know, this is Juniper's actual global corporate network. I have, out of 50,000 Ethernet ports, I have one port that negotiated 10/100 when it should have negotiated gig. Out of 50,000 Ethernet ports, I have 16 ports flapping up and down, 16 out of 50,000. And I know what those 16 devices are, which site they're in, what switch they're in, and what port they are. This is you being proactive and just, systemically removing problems before users complain. And same things with bad cable. Many of you probably have districts and schools that are many decades old and maybe more, and there's a lot of bad cable in there, and being able to find that assertively. And by the way, Marvis is never wrong. Marvis, we say, may not catch everything. Marvis is still growing up, but what Marvis catches, never wrong, right? It's a mic drop, and just go take action, right? Initially, you will question it. Initially, you will challenge it. And then, but ultimately, you'll say, yeah, Marvis gets it, right? So I'll just do it, right? So this is proactive. How do you react? How do you actually react within Marvis, right? Being able to say, hey, show me who's having a bad Wi-Fi experience today in this particular school. And then, this particular user is having a bad Wi-Fi day. Why is that? Being able to dissect very quickly. No one told you who's having a bad Wi-Fi day. The system told you. Marvis told you that. No one told you the MAC address or the username. We got that. And then we'll actually be able to tell you, aha, this user, was failing and it's having a bad authorization, probably using a bad password. Let me go find the, double click and double check the dynamic PCAP. I have all the data I need. So Marvis can not only make you proactive, you can react fast and react fast with very little detail. Right? Marvis is this AI virtual network assistant, conversational assistant that is helping you run the district network.